Hello, my name is Mary Angelie Meitner, and I'm here today to discuss with you how the brain learns to read and also tell you about a reading program that I used as a fifth grade teacher, English Language Arts reading program, that I found to be very successful and very informative and helped me better understand how to implement strategies to teach learning to read and the brain functions. So let's get started. I want to examine some key characteristics about how the brain learns to read. The first characteristic was cited in Sosa and basically says that there are no specialized areas in the brain for learning to read, unlike other things like learning a new language or music or anything like that. Second, according to David Sosa, on page 208 of the article, learning to read successfully requires 3 neural systems and the development of specific skills that work together to help the brain decode abstract symbols into meaningful language. Third characteristic is that these 3 neural systems, have to work together. First, with visual processing, as we read, we scan the letters and numbers and we make sense of it. And then we decode, and we have like basic sounds that are decoded, hence the second step, which is auditory processing. And then our brain, our frontal lobe, integrates this information into meaning based off of our own personal background knowledge and experiences. The fourth characteristic that I found was that there are specific skills when we learn to read, such as phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, the alphabet principle, fluency, text comprehension, and vocabulary, which the program I'm going to share with you actually incorporates all of these pieces of learning to read in the brain. The fifth characteristic is discussed on page 211 of Sosa's article, and they discuss that there might be difficulties when learning to read, and it can be divided into linguistic and non-linguistic causes. An example of a linguistic cause might be a phonological deficit and differences in auditorial visual speeds. So when you see something and you can't make sense of it right away. The processing isn't there. And an example of a non-linguistic cause could be the perception of sound, motor coordination, ADHD, and detection of target sounds in noise. So knowing these characteristics and how the brain works, I want to introduce to you the reading program that I chose to look at, and I would recommend for teachers to try. So the reading program I chose is called the Daily 5, and part of the Daily 5 is also the Daily Cafe. And both of these books are by and written by the same authors, and that's Gail Boushey and Joan Moser, aka the Sisters. They were both published by Stenhouse and Pembroke Publishers back in 2009. So you might ask yourself, how are these 2 programs used for the classroom instruction, student learning activities, based on knowledge of the brain regions and specialization? Well, the Daily 5, first of all, incorporates, like I said earlier, the specific skills used to learn how to read in the brain. So the 5 stations, you've got read to self, read to someone, working on writing. You could be working on word work and vocabulary, expanding your vocabulary. You could be working with the teacher on a specific strategy, a skill that you didn't understand. And a piece of the read to self comes with the Daily Cafe, where it's broken down into 4 more sections. So you're reading to yourself, but not only that, you're also looking at comprehension, accuracy, fluency, and expanding vocab again. So a student could be working on like check for understanding, for example, or rereading the text, or stopping asking themselves, I wonder, I think, flipping the sounds, that kind of thing. So how does this relate to the brain and brain activity and what we know? So the sisters, when they did their early research, their first edition, they went to a speaker, Ken Wesson, and they listened to him about, the length of the period of a lesson and realized that their lessons were way too long. They need to be shorter. And as a good rule of thumb, you want to keep your lessons, your models, short, like the age range that the child is. So if it's a 9-year-old child, you want to keep your model about 9 minutes. Also, the sisters aimed to make sure that students during these activities were doing something meaningful and fostering an independence so that way they could take accountability for what they were doing. On page 28 of the Daily Five, the sisters discuss implications of earlier knowledge they received not only from Ken Wesson, but also from Reggie Routman. So that was another researcher that they learned about. The concept of 80-20, which is the idea that the students need 80% of the time to practice the skill over and over and over again so that they learn how to do it. With this knowledge, that's when they revisited their centers, and just adding 10 more minutes a day they found to be more effective. And in this book, you'll also find 10 steps for fostering independence. You'll look at writing, reading to self, foundation lessons. They give you examples of what the models should look like. So speaking of models, then you've also got just the idea that, students need clarification. They need to have that model in front of them, just as Sosa explains in The Dimensions of Human Thinking on page 267. He states, a model is only as good as its potential for achieving a desired goal. In this case, encouraging higher order thinking in students and the likelihood that teachers feel sufficiently comfortable with the model to make it a regular part of their classroom practice. So understanding that when the students are working, if they're not getting it, you have to stop. You have to go back and check and make sure they understand, model what it looks like. What does it mean to read to ourselves? What does that look like? What does it not look like? Same thing with reading to someone. They give different ideas for that as well. The last thing that I think that they do a good job of is demonstrating higher order thinking skills and also metacognition. So they give students time to self-reflect, give self-assessment. They have stamina building worksheets at the back so students can check themselves as they read. I know from my own personal experience the level of expertise that goes into these programs, the amount of lesson planning they give you, the models, the feedback. They understand the importance of meeting one-on-one in small groups, whole groups, so they're doing, different groups and centers and different types of seating. And then they also, like I said earlier, they have check for understanding, cross-checking. Also, from experience, I know that when you're conferencing with a student, it gives them feedback right then. So it's a lot easier for them to meet their goal, their targeted goals. So they also have targeted goal sheets. And so here's some examples of some of the things. You've got your read to self. You've got reflections. You've got accountability checks. So each day, what were they working on, the activity. And each of the 5 stations were work on writing, read to self, read to someone, and you can incorporate math too if you want. Another great finding that I found that the authors provide are these core foundation of the program. The idea that you build a relationship of trust and a level of respect with the students so that they feel like they have control in their own learning And they also have a sense of community, and the students are given choices, which I love. Another note is that this program does incorporate math. Like I said earlier, it's called the Daily 3. I did not use that one, but if you're a math teacher, they've got examples for lessons for teaching math and introducing different concepts, the Daily 3. Like working with a partner on different activities, building your vocabulary in math, and also understanding independence and fostering independence in math as well. So I hope you enjoy learning about the Daily 5 and the Daily Cafe, and give it a try if you get a chance. Thank you. Take care.